We are holding a part two of the part two of our series this week today. The topic is on screens, babies, and growing minds, mapping and practical strategies. A topic many of you have continued to express interest in learning about, especially on this important topic. We are very excited to welcome back Dr. Nina Newman, who joined us previously for part one. Dr. Newman is a licensed psychologist with expertise in infant and early childhood development, reflective practice, and family mental health. Her work focuses on strengthening the emotional, social, and developmental well-being of children and families through relationship-based and trauma-informed approaches. Dr. Nina, we're so grateful to continue this conversation with you today. Please help me give a warm welcome back to Dr. Newman, and the floor is yours.
Very nice to see you all. I do recognize some names from the last time, so I'm very happy to be back with you. I know this is a complicated topic in this day and age. So please, as we go through this, I really encourage you to ask questions. And this is going to be, as I explained to Jennifer, a general overview, but please know, I know these aren't easy conversations to have with families. So I hope that we can have some discussion about how we talk to families and the language we use, because I know that's part of how the message gets across. So start this, and at some point we're going to go into breakout rooms as well later on in the discussion. So let's see, here we go. So this is part two, as Jennifer told you, and just an overview. This is the guidelines in an ideal world. The American Academy of Pediatrics would prefer no child under the age of 5 to have screen time because of the effects it has on the brain and social emotional development, which means cognitive development, speech and language, motor and sensory issues. But they know it's not realistic considering the day and age we live in. So the guidelines are that 18 to 24 months and under, no screen time at all, except for video chatting with loved ones, and that's in conjunction with a parent or a caregiver. I know that's going to be a difficult one, but this is what they prefer. I think in our last meeting, we talked about brain development. What they have found is that by using screens, which includes light, motions, color, a range of factors outside of content, it overdevelops parts of the brain not ready to develop and neglects other parts of the brain that need to be developed. Plus, since relationships are the foundation for brain development, the time taken on screen time is that much less time taken in interactions with caring adults. So then between 2 and 5, the limit is to 1 hour per day of high quality, low stimulation programming and accompanied by a caregiver. And I'll give you at the very end of this, I'll give you some examples of what they consider low stimulation programming. And I know these goals are aspirational, but I just thought I'd show them to you up front that in an ideal world for healthy development, this is what they'd prefer in terms of helping the child develop as they need. What we're seeing a lot now in preschool situations is speech and language delays. A lot of children being referred to SLPs in part because of the use of screen time. You can't learn language through a screen because language is a very complicated system, which includes affect, tone, and responsiveness to the adult and the adult responding to you. So there's a bidirectional effect. I know I've heard many families say, well, they watch Miss Rachel. Miss Rachel's not low stimulation programming, and it's not helping kids to develop language. Any questions about these age ranges and the guidelines here? Just shout out because I can't see you all. I can only see 5 of you at a time.
No questions at this moment.
Okay. So today we're going to cover screen time in families, talking and working together because you'll have to partner with your families. Family needs and challenges, identifying and mapping screen time patterns. Actually, the American Academy of Pediatrics actually has a screen time mapping tool. I, I haven't seen it this in the last 6 months, but it was up before. Strategies to do this, transitions from screen time to other activities, some activity discussions, then we're going to go into breakout rooms to brainstorm, and then I will give you the low stimulation resources. So I think this is probably one of the biggest challenges is talking to family about screen usage. It, the first step is to have solid relationships with the parents or caregivers that you work with. That's first and foremost, because for them to trust what you're saying, for them to want to follow through on what you're saying, they have to have a safe relationship with you, and they have to believe that what you're telling them is true. I know that sounds an odd thing to say, but trust and believing what someone's being told is a bigger challenge than we realize, especially in this day and age when people can go on Instagram or TikTok or whichever program they're looking at that's telling them information. So that's step number one. And good communication and how you talk to them. That is, can you create a safe, non judgmental space for them to hear something that might feel overwhelming and challenging, since many parents use screen time as a babysitter or as a way to give themselves time to breathe, which we understand because parents are under tremendous stresses these days. How we can be curious and wonder with them. What do they see as the pros and cons? What are their concerns about minimizing screen time? What are their thoughts about screen time generally? What is their own support system? And how can you help them reframe the idea of making changes? Thoughts on this? Anybody? How many of you have had any conversation with your families about screen time? Good, bad, indifferent, just Janet, I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, you did. I was just raising my hand saying, yes, I've had many conversations because I'm a parent coach, and when I do the 2 to 4 week visit, I go inside homes and there is a massive screen attached to the wall and then a newborn just facing to the screen. And it's kind of like discouraging, sad. I don't know, all of the above.
And what do your conversations look like, and how has that been for you?
First of all, well, I start the visit introducing myself, explaining the protocol of the program, and then open space for the client if she or both of the parents are present if they have questions. Then we start talking about, their jobs, what they do, and, warming up a little bit. And then, oh, I've noticed, the TV is on. Is there a reason why? Or are you guys watching something? Is it possible to have the baby face the opposite side of the TV? And then I start giving information about how, and sometimes the volume is really high. So I explain then, about the noise and the consequences, the reason why why I'm sharing this information, and other activities that they can do with the baby instead of having the TV on. Or if they are watching something, have some type of schedule, or if there is a possibility to remove the baby from the living room or the bedroom where they are. Sometimes they are receptive to this information, and other times you can see the mom or the dad making faces or rolling their eyes at you, and you know.
So, what I'm curious about is what that means for the parents, why they're needing the screen on 24/7. In some families, they just have the TV on all day long. And can you wonder with them about what benefit they think it is for the baby to have the screen time? I'm
Um, some some answers that I have heard is that they just like to have the TV on, the noise on the background. For moms, it's like, oh, it's because I feel that someone is with me, that I'm not by myself with the baby. And I give them options, to have some music or the Alexa or the Dot on or in their phone, just have music on and at a regular or normal volume, not really high.
So it sounds like what we're talking about is more of a family problem, a systems problem, a mother who may not feel supported. And that's something that we want to keep an eye on, and whether she needs more a referral. I don't know how your system works entirely, whether you are able to refer for family support. But when I see that TVs are on all day or the mother's alone, that's sort of an indication that the mother might need more help and more support in what's going on. We might want to look at the parent mental health as well, which is not insignificant because that directly affects the baby, especially if she's got a very young baby. If this is within the first year of life, perinatal mental health issues are on the rise exponentially. So that just might be a gentle indication that mom may be struggling a bit. And if she uses it as a way to avoid face-to-face interactions with her baby, then we might want to consider or go to a supervisor and think about whether mom might need more support. Thoughts on this? Because sometimes postnatal depression or perinatal depression, there are a lot of times problems show up after 6 weeks after the birth. Is something to keep an eye on, and it may not look like you think it looks. So something to keep in mind, especially when they have an infant. Thank you, Janet, for sharing that. Other thoughts on this? Okay. Hang on. So again, coming back to when we want to talk to a family, we want to understand each individual family, because every family has different needs and every family will have a different perspective on what they're using screen time for. So perhaps finding a way to be curious with them so it doesn't come across as judgmental. And many of you may already know this because it sounds like you get good training here, that how you would ask a question. Like, I'm curious about when you use screen time, or I'm wondering, when do you like to use screen time, or what happens when you say no? Or what happens, or how do you feel if you can't use screen time? Just wondering with them what goes on so you can get a better sense of what's happening in the family and why they're using it and to what end. And if they do say no and the child gets upset, how do they redirect the child's attention? Can they tolerate the child being upset? I mean, if you've seen a 2-year-old in front of a screen, they can look like zombies. They don't hear, they don't connect. Their attention is completely focused on flashing lights, on the screen, on sound. Another question is whether it's hard to set boundaries and stay consistent. We know it's hard for all of us, and you might want to frame it in that context. Like, I've been there. I know it's hard. What's hard for you? I can tell you what's been hard for me. So they don't feel it's you coming in with all the answers and judging them. Because none of us have all the answers, and we don't know their individual families, and we don't live with them. So we want to go in with an open mind. And for many of us with young children, this is a problem for all of us, especially when they go to other people's houses or just in our own lives. And maybe ask them what they would like to change, if anything, and why. Ideally, what would you like to see? And what's getting in the way? And can I be helpful? Because I know I have these challenges myself. So I think some way to couch it so it's a we, not a them. Like, I'm pointing at you. We're trying to brainstorm together. So having said that, as a provider, you need to check in with yourself too. Do you have similar issues of your own in your own family? How can you understand your own responses to support your interactions with your family? I mean, you can empathize with them. Maybe you use that empathy to talk to them. Thoughts or questions on this? Anybody have any suggestions, ideas? I would love to hear your thoughts. Everyone's very quiet today.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there are any other examples of a parent coach, approaching this conversation with families. Again, this is the time where we learn from each other. So, if anyone
Totally.
has, yeah, if anyone has any input on how they approach this conversation with families, that would be great.
And do you think it's important? I mean, there's no wrong or right answer here. We're all trying to figure it out together. I don't have a magic wand on how to do this. I know ideally what it should be, but we don't live in that kind of world. So, and parents have complicated lives. I'd love to hear any
Good
thoughts.
morning. I would
Hi.
like to share something. I just wanted to share an experience that I had with one of my families. And we usually, so we have the not best start community and the best start community. And our best start community, we see families up until baby is 9 months. And the last two visits of our engagements, we do the ASQ, so the developmental assessment for the baby at 3 months, and then the last one is at 9 months. But for this particular, so ahead of time, we let them know like, oh, this is what we're gonna do. This is how the assessment works. We would love to see, or you know, um, if baby is awake, of course, we're gonna, do some activities, hands-on activities, floor time, whatever it is, right? So for this visit, and just to emphasize something, this was mom's third baby, I want to say. I'm trying to remember how many, third or fourth baby. But there was a big gap between the last one and then the baby. Um, but long story short, when I got there, the baby was sitting on his bouncer, looking straight at that TV. Big screen, I want to say 65-inch, 75-inch TV. Just like literally, he wasn't even blinking, like staring at that TV. And he was 3.5 months. So I was, oh my God, and of course we have to be, very when it comes to, talking to our families, we don't wanna, sometimes it could be part of their culture. Or maybe this is something that they, she you know, grew up, or maybe this is something that she did with her other kids, right? And maybe she didn't know, or whatever the case it was. So we did talk a little bit about, how it's important that we do hands-on activities, and then we're there for the baby at all times. It's best babies learning better from us and things like that. So I asked mom when we did the assessment. I asked mom, hey, there was a question. I forgot what it was. She's like, I'm not sure if he does that, but she did mention, oh, he loves this certain song that I put on YouTube for him. And if I don't play it for him, he starts crying. He loves it. Every time I put it, he calms down. So I just put it on repeat. So I was like, so it was very shocking for me. This is the first time that it happened, with when I doing a developmental assessment. But I remember particularly because mom was relying a lot on the older kids, because every time I would ask a question, I said, Mom, have you noticed if baby does it? He's like, you know what? Um, he spends a lot of time with his sister. So I'm not sure if he's already doing that. So I know it was very hard, but we talk about it. We managed to, I kind of give her home. So what I tell my parents, I'm gonna give you some homework, and they like that, right? So we'll try to work on these. We're gonna try to do less screening. How about we learn the song, ourselves, and then we sing it to baby instead of having him to be on a TV, all day. And she liked that idea. And she was only a Spanish speaking client. So I kind of show her some songs that are in Spanish, for her to just kind of sing with baby. But yeah, I remember that, visit, very clearly because of everything that happened from the moment I got there. And I remember telling mom, okay, we're gonna do certain activities. So all we need is, maybe a blanket or something that we can use on the floor. And hopefully baby's awake. And maybe some toys if you have them available. But we usually bring a toy when we do that activity, when we do that assessment with the client, with the moms. So, but yeah, it was really hard. And then for the last visit, the 9 month, um, baby was doing a lot better, but she did have to talk to the doctor. He was a little bit behind on his developmental milestones.
Was there any conversation from what you're describing to me? It doesn't sound like mom was that connected to him, and that the lack of bonding was
Yes.
probably directly related to the developmental milestone issues. And
Yeah,
that's something that we're seeing with screen time, is that social emotional development, that attachment, that connection is the foundation for those activities. So again, it comes down to what's going on with mom. I know 4 children,
yeah,
3 children's a lot. It's a lot to take care of on your own. But the fact that she couldn't answer some of those questions, that she wasn't that connected, that sister who probably wasn't more than a child herself, had taken over some of the parental activities that might help the baby at some point, but clearly the baby was showing signs of something going on in the family system.
definitely. Definitely. I agree with you. And I feel like this is my personal opinion. I feel like a lot of parents rely on screening because either they're busy or they want to get things done in the house. And, that's the only way that would keep baby busy or entertained, while they do, household chores and things like that. So, at least, in my personal opinion.
Good morning.
Did you unshare the screen, Jennifer? It just unshared itself, but that's okay. Who else
Yeah.
wanted to talk? We can go back to it in a minute.
Good morning. I just wanted to give a different viewpoint on it, possibly. So, a lot of the um, videos and things that they have for kids right now are educational in a sense, right? Gracie's Corner and things like that. And so maybe mom in her mind is giving baby a head start, right? Because she's sitting baby there and it's not just a mindless activity. In her mind, they're learning the ABCs, they're learning numbers, and they're learning these things, but we just need to find a way to help them to understand that it's too early.
I agree. I know that many parents, and I'll get to that in the slide, believe that it's going to help their kids to be smarter to watch some of these programs. There used to
Right.
be this thing called Baby Einstein, but it wasn't yielding the
Yes.
results they expected. I always laugh. People say, "Oh, they want their kids to be Einstein." They probably wouldn't, because he didn't speak really till he was 8 or 9 years old, and he was on the spectrum and he had a lot of problems in early childhood. But that, unfortunately, that isn't the best way for children to learn. Now, if they're sitting with their parent and they're watching something that's low stimulation and educational, so the mom can turn around and say, okay, your name starts with an A. Can we say A? That it becomes a social interaction as well as just a passive activity. So maybe when they're
Well, we're
older, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, well, just like some of the other coaches have shared, we're seeing this with infants, right? So even at that stage, if mom it's not really effective if she's communicating with baby at that stage, but just kind of maybe, um, I don't know if there's material or handouts out there that exist already that kind of explains waiting until baby is over. This is awesome. Like, Gracie's Corner and all of those things are awesome at this stage going forward. But like they said, we're going into these visits and we have babies that are in bouncers, swaddled and just kind of like sat there and like I think it was Evelyn that shared, they're probably thinking this is what I did with my other children. It's going to keep them busy learning something while I'm also able to get some things done. So just kind of being able to break the barrier and understanding when those things can be introduced, that would be effective.
Yeah, that I would agree with you. It's certainly not in infancy. And that's a problem because, again, as Evan's case pointed out, you're going to end up finding these children have lags in meeting their milestones. They're going to have speech and language problems depending on the excessive, depending on how much they're using screen as opposed to face interactions with a caregiver. There's not, I don't want to sound gloom and doom, but if that baby's spending a significant amount of time in the first year of life in front of a screen, it's not going to go well. There's going to be a high likelihood that child will have learning issues, attention issues, regulation problems, because you need to do it with a caregiver. Now, again, if the caregiver isn't connected to the baby in that way, that's a sign that we need to support that mom or whoever that caregiver is, that she's finding it hard to connect with the baby and wanting to interact. That's serve and return, what we call serve and return. So you interact with the baby comes back to you with a response, and you go back to the baby with his response. That's how the baby is learning about other people, but that's also how they learn about themselves. So if an infant is crying or anxious and the mom picks the baby up and says, I know that was really hard and it must be scary, but you're going to be okay. The baby's looking to the mom, and the mom is organizing that baby's understanding of the experience. If there's no caregiver helping the baby to organize that experience, then it's very hard for the baby to come to know themselves and their place in the world and to regulate. So if you're seeing that excessively in that first year of life, that might be a red flag to see if that mom needs more help. That because it's a dyad or a triad. It could be these days we have caregivers who are aunts, uncles, grandparents, fathers, whoever that primary caregiver is might need more support than they're getting. We can give the caregiver information, but that might be more an issue of their struggles with making attachments to the infant.
Dr. Nina, question,
Yeah,
just
sure.
because she did bring a good point about maybe providing handouts, right?
Yeah,
I also do think that a lot of parents are not informed, right, of
I agree.
the the damage that could be done. But do you think there are handouts? I want to look for some, right, for everyone,
I
but
think I could find some
okay.
some handouts specifically about how to talk to give parents this
Yeah.
information. I think I was just talking about if they can't
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
that, yeah,
Yeah, and I could look into some too and maybe run them by you. And then I'll be mindful of looking for Spanish ones as well. As I know
exactly.
that, yeah. But I'll run them by you, and that's you brought a good point. Dionisha, is that how you say your name? Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks. I've
No,
noted that on my end.
I agree with you. And sometimes it can be great. I know Mr. Rogers isn't on anymore. If they can find it, that was a great example. He was very low stimulation, and he seemed to appeal to children across the board, but it was educational. He spoke very quietly. He also had a psychologist, I think she was a psychoanalyst, who worked with him for 30 years to make sure the programming reflected what should happen in relationships and how to connect with children. So it wasn't just random, it was well thought out. But Denise, I'll try to find that information for you along with Jennifer. Thank you for bringing that up. Joanna?
Yeah, I agree with Donisha. I think it's some of it is cultural. And what we're also finding is that I've heard you mention a couple of things, but we are finding ourselves working with very limited resources. And so some of these families do what they can with what little they have, right? If there's a very small or non-existent support system
That's a
and
problem.
there's very little help, um, then that's kind of what they rely on. So we go in these homes, and just like Janet, I've been to very early visits, and I'm thinking, what is this baby doing in front of this giant TV? And so that's where we go in and try to um help, but it is a sensitive, situation because we don't want to insult their parenting. And so coming in with a handout would be very, helpful. What I've done in the past is, I just attended this training where we talked about, screen time. Is it okay if I share this information with you? Oftentimes that kind of breaks the ice, and moms are a little bit more receptive to it. Um, when we're talking about, um, you know, mommies that can be a little bit disconnected or maybe even suffering from depression, oftentimes it's very hard to even just get out of bed. And so there's a lot sometimes to work with. And so going into these visits, we're working to find what the need is. And so it's not necessarily like a cookie cutter, but definitely
Agree.
trying to find what the need is and how do we tailor it, at every visit.
If mom has a newborn, has an infant and she can't get out of bed, that's a red flag for
Hmm.
help.
Absolutely.
They need help like immediately. Um, one thought as you were talking, and some of these mothers with infants who need to do things in the house, the old baby Bjorns or the kangaroo pouches. The baby would be it'd be better for baby and mom if the baby were on mom in that pouch and she could go ahead and do her things than the baby be attached to screens. We can talk about narrating, that the mom can say, now I have to go into the kitchen and cook and do this and do that. And she might think it's silly, but talking to the baby like that, narrating what she's doing and being able to move through the house with the baby on her so she can still be free to do what she needs to do would be better for the baby. The baby will learn language that way. They'll feel connected. They can hear the heartbeat. This is with infants. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do that with a toddler, but it would be better in that first year for the baby to be in that position rather than on a screen. So that might be something to suggest with somebody who's got limited resources. Because money is, I understand, it's not about having things in the house. You can do a lot with what you have. And the child needs more than anything you. Like the mom is the best tool. And for some parents, I think they may feel they're not enough, depending on what their own background's like. And maybe feeling support that you are enough and that nothing's more important to that baby than to be connected to you might be a start in helping mom feel like she can be enough for her baby. And I know she might want her baby to be smart, do well in school, better than she might have done. People have all sorts of things that go through their head depending on their background. But we can do that in terms of supporting mom. It's You all have very hard jobs. And I think it's wonderful that you care the way you do. Thoughts on this? They're finding that first 2 years of life, a lot goes on. There's a lot of research. And then they now think even in that first 100 days. So the more we can support that closeness, even the physical contact, is really important. Sahara, do you want to say that out loud so people can hear that?
Yes,
That's a,
thank you for this opportunity. Just, yeah, it's something that I always share with the parents, early on when we do, like everybody mentioned, at the 2 to 4 week visit, encouraging our clients to always talk, read, and sing to the babies. I definitely mentioned the music playing, but never the screen time. And when I say, your baby's learning you, you're learning from baby, baby's learning you. So it's always good to talk to the baby. And if you don't have any books for the baby, by all means, please talk about what you're doing over the day. If you are, getting ready for the laundry, let's talk about sorting the laundry. What are you doing at that moment? If you
Exactly.
prepping a meal, talk about what mommy's going to cook for her breakfast in the morning so that you can continue to produce milk for your baby. So it's really having them, giving that expression that it's a baby, but baby's learning from what you're doing too. And just speaking to them about what is going on through the day. And a lot of times they really enjoy that and motivated. And next thing you know, when I come back to the 2-month visit, the baby is making sounds and googling to mom, smiling back to mom. So it's really a unique experience. But talking to them, I love it when we see our clients prenatally, because we talk about that prenatally while they're pregnant with their babies. Do you talk to your baby, hug your baby, play music to your baby. And so all of this come about when the baby's out of the womb. They tend to really look at mom. So it's I love it when we see our clients prenatally, because we can talk about those things early on. This communication with their baby in the womb.
That's so wonderful that you're doing it prenatally, because that relationship starts prenatally.
Yes.
Even being able to sing to your baby, I think that's a
Mhm.
great idea. Tell them that what they're doing in the day, that means everything to the baby. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of things
Mhm.
to have a really successful relationship with your child and for the outcomes to be good.
Thank
They
you.
need to have you and to be connected. So I think that's great. I think that's a really good suggestion, and really the most valid that we can talk
Mhm.
about here is everything's relying on that relationship. and,
Definitely.
and helping people who may not feel like they are enough to feel enough, because they're
Mhm.
going to get something out of it. If they start to do that and the baby's responsive to them, then their self-worth starts to build because they feel they can be enough. And I think that's really important, that no
Yeah.
program can compete with the caregiver's love and attention. Anybody else? Go ahead, Mimi. You're on mute.
I would like to share, like for me, as like when I do my visit 3 to 4 months, I always encourage mom to have some paper, like a color paper, and so they can write a letter, like A, B, C. Just start like a 3 word at a time, just to showing to the baby so they can learn instead using the screen time. And then just making like a routine, like what first thing in the morning that you should do with the baby. Just like they waking up in the morning, get ready to start their day, like going to school. It's just like early head start, like limit screen time and sing. And then what do you want your kid to be in life when they grow up? So that's what, I always share with mom, when the 9 month come, we're going to do another assessment. This one is going to be a little bit bigger milestone. And just, and by the time my baby at 9 months and up, they're going to be able to say word, like, like into the sentence. At least like mama, dada, something like that. So we just going into from the Welcome Baby book, just like let client just follow each step with what is the baby is able to start communicate with you from each of that month. So that's what is from, even the client from prenatal. I always educating you, talking to your baby. They remember, by the time they are like age 3, they're able to say a lot of word in the sentence already.
I think that's great. And the prenatal start is wonderful because it's really important that they start to feel connected to the baby. Somehow we want to get the message across that no program, no screen is going to be as effective as the relationship between her and her baby, regardless of what their resources are. I know there's especially these days, it's very hard for families to get by, especially in California financially. So we want them to feel that they themselves are enough by singing is a great way. Sing songs that they learned when they were growing up, anything, talking to them, doing laundry, cooking. And when they're older, we'll talk about it a little later, making them helpers. Children don't know that it's work, it's play to them. If mom says, "Can you bring me the tomatoes?" And so they bring the tomatoes. So what color are those tomatoes? I think it's red and that shape is round. That no program's going to be able to teach them that because the love and connection that the parent has with the child, memory gets much better encoded if it has an emotional component to it. So if learning is memory. So if you want your child to learn, it's better it's done with love and connection because they're more likely to integrate it and remember it. So thank you. You all sound like you're doing really good work. Any other thoughts on this? Can't go back and I don't know why I had unshared, but I was glad to see your faces. So we've talked about some of this. Hang on. So one way you can do it if a parent's open is to map their time. One of the things that's surprising is people think their kids or they are not spending much time in front of the screen, but then they start to map it and they realize, oh, my kid's spending 6 hours a day on a screen, or I'm spending all that time. So again, you want to find a way to do it with curiosity and wonder, not with judgment, like, so just how much are you using screen time? We don't want that. So let's think about it together. I need to think about it for myself and my own use. So let's think about it. So when do you use it? What do you use it for? And how many hours a day? I mean, ideally, you'd want this. I'm not sure every family is able to do this, and you need to gauge that by how much they can hear. There's an old saying about timing, dosage, and tact. So when you say something, how you say it, and how much you say. And so that you're going to have to judge based on each individual family and how much they can hear. But this is a rough idea of how you might map it up. What type of programming or FaceTime or other are you using? So if they're using FaceTime to talk to a grandparent who's far away and you're sitting there with the child, okay, that's a social interaction. So that is not the same as putting an infant in front of a 65-inch screen TV for 4 hours. This is an important one. What time do they start using screen time before they go to bed? The same rule applies to adults. You probably shouldn't look at a screen at least an hour before you go to sleep because we know that screen time interrupts sleep patterns. And then the other one is how parents own screen time. Everybody's saying, well, it's just 5 minutes, it's just 5 minutes, but it adds up over the day. And for every 5 minutes an adult looks at their phone, it's 5 minutes less they're looking at their child, especially in infancy. Thoughts on this or questions? And again, there's no perfection. All of us are in the same mess with each other because we all have our phones. We're all on our phones much more than we were 20 years ago. So this is a work in progress. So developing strategies. Something so if the parent is open, you might want to say, when would you like your child to use screen time? Why and for how long? Make it intentional. So if they think, between 5 o'clock, I just need an hour. I've got 2 other children. Between 5 and 6 is when I need to make dinner, when I need to do this. Maybe one of my kids can sit with the baby. They can watch this program. They can be together. Or we can figure out a time when I can sit for half an hour for the baby. If I need to rest and take a moment, that we sit together and watch something for half an hour here or half an hour there. So it's about having intention about that. Also, thinking with the parent, so what other alternatives to these activities could I do? Then help to develop plans to scaffold the child's use. Find language to talk with your child. What words, phrases, or tones do you want to use that you think the child can hear? And develop a schedule for when this might be helpful to the parent. Like, okay, I can organize my time. So between 5 and 6, this can happen so I can do this. And build in when, if it's an older child, build in reminders saying, okay, you're going to be able to watch this program at 5 o'clock, but just remember, we just watch it for half an hour. You can choose one of these 5 programs and then just give 5-minute reminders. So the child can anticipate. It might help them from having a meltdown when you turn off the screen. Thoughts on this? Okay. So supporting families making a transition from using too much screen time is set reasonable goals and expectations. We might all ideally like that child not to be sitting in front of a screen at all or for half an hour at the end of the day with their parents, but you need to look at that family and what's going to be reasonable and doable. Support the parent in making consistent boundaries. So really at 4 o'clock, that needs to go off, or 6, 5:30, whatever you decide. And maybe float the idea of a screen time curfew before bedtime, especially in toddlers who might have a lot of energy and get stimulated by what they're watching. And you need the child to go to bed by 8. So by 7, that needs to be done with screen time, and see if you can help do calmer activities and help them calm their bodies down. And then maybe creating a screen-free zone in some corner, either their apartment, their house, where there's other activities to do, where the child knows that they can go and do something else. Remind the parents perfection is not the goal, doesn't exist. This is all a work in progress for all of us. You can check in about how they feel about this and what they think, and ask how else you can be supportive in making this transition. And encourage the parent to come up with ideas for helping to minimize screen time. Because we want to build the parent's confidence as well as supporting the baby. Because if you think about it, there's no baby without that caregiver, in the sense the child can't survive without them. So we want to be able to support the parent's sense of self and take ownership of making good choices for their baby, rather than just telling them. This is about helping the parent feel good as well. So just some ideas for alternative activities. Some of you have already brought that up, and I thought you'd come up with really good ideas. Audio instead of video. Children can listen to stories, listen to music without that visual component. That might be one way to go. Help the parent can sing, maybe they can play something, some music. That helps set body rhythms. Our brain is hardwired to listen to music, not because it's nice, but because it helps us calm our bodies, regulate. So that could be a really good alternative. Again, as I said, as they get older, they can have helper roles where they help in the kitchen, or help. You can sweep, you can put this in the garbage for me, you can get the tomato, things like that, that the parent might see as work, but for the child might make them feel like it's play and that they're being able to do something with their parent. Again, try to create a screen-free activity zone. It doesn't have to be big or fancy. It might just be a place where there's crayons and paper. And then maybe help the parent think, to develop screen-free morning and bedtime routines. So what are we going to do in the morning? Maybe help the parent organize so he or she doesn't feel flooded. Then modeling good screen behavior yourself. Putting boundaries on when and how you use the phone or the computer. Other activities, unstructured play, paper, drawing, color supplies, manipulative dance parties where you play music and encourage the children to dance, books, building things. Again, you can use cardboard boxes, save the rolls from paper towels. You don't need to spend a lot of money to have activities for your children. And you can get creative with parents of what they already have or what they use to use for their kids. Some of you, again, have already shared some of these ideas. Anybody else like to share something?
Hortensia dropped in the chat box. My grandma used to let my little cousins play with all the Tupperware as she cooked and washed the dishes. And Hortensia, I do the same thing. My son steps into the kitchen with me. I just hand him little Tupperware and sometimes,
Exactly.
yeah, and I've been told, and I am a witness that they don't need toys. They use their imagination. They use Tupperwares. You give them like a spatula. They find something to do with that. So, I am gonna 100% agree with her.
The more we can encourage them to use their imagination and the creativity, the better. It's great. Even at Target, they sell these plastic Tupperware like containers, for $3.99, you can get six of them. You can put dried beans in them and make them shake. There are so many things, and they seem to gravitate to real things. We have a 2-year-old in our family. He knows where the real phone is, or he knows where the real car keys are. He's not playing with those, doesn't want to play with that, but he'd rather be in the pots and pans. So I think encouraging that also encourages the child to brainstorm, plan, strategize, have ideas. And this is what makes children successful later in life, being able to use their minds. So I can't encourage this enough. And I know one family who had dance parties. So, because they're a very high energy child. So at night they just played some music and encouraged, and he just dances away for half an hour all around the house. And it's wonderful because it brings joy to them, and the parents get joy out of watching him dance, and it wears him out a bit. So when he goes to bed, he's calmer. So,
Uh, Dr. Nina,
yes,
I
yes,
something that I talked to my parents um, that have older siblings. So years ago, I used to do Zumba, but then I found out about kids Zumba for kids, and they actually have them for free on YouTube. So I was just talking to a mom last week, and she has a 3-year-old and then the newborn. And then she was saying how he's really busy, like he has so much energy. And, I try to take him to the park, things like that. So we talk about, hey, have you heard of it? Maybe you can bring some hula hoops since he's 3 years old. And we talk about if you have the space inside, if you don't mind, him, doing that, you guys can maybe start like a little routine, and it will be good for baby too because he can watch you guys do it. Yes, he's going to be maybe watching on the screen, but you get to do it with him and you get to model or help him do kind of like the little movements, that they show there. She's like, oh
yeah.
my God, that's such a good idea. And then she was so excited because she was looking forward to do it or even have dad or grandma who was there at that day at that visit try to do it with her 3-year-old because she had barely gave birth to the baby, the sibling.
That's a great idea. If they do it together, the whole family can Zumba, and it's a wonderful experience. They hear the music, the rhythm, they're doing it with somebody, and it's great for the body, for everybody's body, whether you're a child or a parent, to move and to be joyous like that. I think it's a wonderful idea because we want people to have joy as well, being with their children and coming up with fun activities so it's not just all hard work.
Dr. Newman, there are a couple of other activities that others have put in the chat box, and
I'd
I
love
do,
to hear it.
yeah, me too. And I do want to encourage everyone to drop the activities that you do with families or you share with families to keep babies busy. Again, let's learn from one another. And I think you guys are all the experts, and there may be things that others didn't know they could share with families. But Sahara put using empty water bottles are great.
Yeah.
Are great noisy toys, and babies or toddlers love them. Joanna put ABC magnets on metal doors, which are those are also fun.
I think this is great. Maybe all of you, if you have a transcript of this, Jennifer,
Yeah,
you could put a list together and have sheets and share each other's ideas as ways to give parents
yeah.
alternatives to doing this. Um,
Absolutely. I actually have one too. And this also promotes fine motor skills. My son, when he was little, he would love sticky notes. He would love to remove them. And what I would do is I would paste them either on the mirror or the wall, and all he would do is just grab them and I would do the same thing over and over, and he loved doing that too. So that doesn't require much money, right? It's sticky notes could be bought at the 99-cent store. So that's also another great activity. And then Nancy put tape, tape, tape paper bags on the floor with some chalks and crayons. I love that idea too,
it's
Nancy.
great. These are really great ideas. And the 99-cent store is really a treasure chest for
Mhm.
children. You could even buy small pots when they're older and get seeds there and plant things and water them. You know, just to watch them grow and show children there are different ways to be. I think these are all wonderful ideas.
Yeah,
And
sorry, one more. Hortensia did put, we just have to be careful with the bottle lids. I had a
yes,
client who had a scare with the wrapper from the bottle and the lid. So yes, being mindful of that too.
yeah, taking those parts off because the first thing they want to do, I had one child do stickers, but then he started eating them. So we want to just watch for what they want to do with it. They're often use it in different ways. One client had a set of crayons and he turned them into missiles and he was like shooting them, putting them in the air and things like that. So as long as they're not eating them, we're good. And these are great ideas. Thank you. So the next one is to go into breakout rooms and brainstorm. These are just some prompts, but you can come up with your own. How to approach parents, how might you phrase a question or help them be curious? Some things you might start with, I wonder if, or tell me more. What are your own concerns about asking parents to shift screen time habits? What are your own ideas for alternatives? And how can you help parents reframe their ideas and habits? So Jennifer is going to put you into breakout rooms and then we'll all come back and talk.
Just to make sure, for how long would you like these breakout rooms, Dr. Newman?
Probably 10 minutes because I'm mindful we're already 6 minutes after 10. So how's 10
Perfect.
minutes?
That
Okay.
sounds great. You will be in groups of two. Some groups will have three of you, but let me see. Let me put this one in. Sorry. All right. Well, again for 10 minutes, and I am opening the breakout rooms right now. Christina, Annie, are you having trouble joining your room? Christina? Oh, there you go. Perfect. Dr. Newman, this is great.
Oh, good. I hope
This
it's
is
helpful.
great. It is so great. And I think I love that they're all being engaged. And I appreciate that you're giving them space to, because I think this is what these spaces are for them to learn from one another. And
I
it's so
agree.
helpful to hear their experiences and what they see. Again, they're the ones doing these visits with families. So, yeah.
I'd see my role as much as a facilitator for them to think about them themselves because I'm not going to be in the room with them and I can give them ideas, but they know their individual families.
I
Hi,
Yeah,
don't
no,
know
Jen.
what happened.
it's okay. I'll
I
go ahead.
couldn't see my whomever I'm with. I couldn't see or hear, and then it took me out.
So three. Okay, let me put you in another room, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Uh, did you get it? Yeah, okay. Perfect. Yeah. No, but you're doing a wonderful job as a facilitator. So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, you're great. I wish we could have you every single quarter. But you know what? I do love the idea of the handouts, and as I was listening to you, I did look for some, and there are some really neat ones, but I would love to run them by you,
That's fine.
if
I'm
that's
happy.
okay.
Of
Yeah,
course.
I want to make sure we provide them resources that are reliable and have the right information. And everything you've mentioned are in these, so I'll send them over to you.
I'd be happy to look at them, Jennifer.
Thank you.
It's
Sid,
great. It's a great group, and
yeah,
everybody puts a lot of thought into it. It's really
yeah.
hard to be a parent these days.
Hmm.
Lots of challenges and
Yeah.
uh,
Cythery, are you having trouble with your room?
Yes, I was in the room. Seemed like no one there, only me.
Yeah, I think Jeanette had the same. You were both in the same room, but let me go ahead and I'm gonna place you in another room, okay?
Okay, thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you. Okay, there. Yeah, this is great. We have 20 minutes left. Are we good on time on your end?
I think so. Yes, I
Oh,
know it
wonderful.
ends at 10:30, so I want to be mindful of everybody's schedule.
Yeah.
So if we bring them back at like 10:15 or so,
Hmm.
then they have some time to talk.
Yes.
And so
Perfect. Yeah.
the only thing worries me is these infants in front of screens.
I
I'm
know.
so
But I am gonna say too, and I was gonna mention this out loud. Again, I do have the privilege to have that expertise of having a little one these times. And the challenge is finding activities when they're little, like from 1 to 6 months, because they're not as engageful, right? So
right.
my partner, for example, my husband, had a more difficult time being able to engage with the newborn. Um, but I would always encourage, you might think that he's not paying attention, but he is. And so read him a book, talk to him, sing to him. It's difficult for some people, right? Because
Well,
it's
for
like,
dads
yeah,
especially, for some reason,
exactly. Yeah.
that he doesn't think he can't see anything happening, but everything
Yeah.
is being registered. That
Yeah.
brain is building things at
Yeah.
lightning speed. So if his dad's reading to him, his dad might think, well, he doesn't know, but he absolutely does know. And
Hmm.
then it's all being built into the architecture of who he is, which
Hmm.
is, if you're not in this world, might be hard to understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as the mom, it's maybe it's just I know it's a generalization, but moms tend to be a bit more connected at that state
Yeah.
part.
I
But
don't know if it's an instinct, right? Like a mother instinct, or when people say, "Oh, moms are just born with it." I mean, as cliche as it
some
sounds,
are.
it is true. It is very true. You figure it out. I think as moms, like you figure things out, and
If,
yeah,
if you're in a position to want that baby,
yeah,
because
yeah,
there are some women who end up having babies and it triggers very,
yes.
a lot of trauma, a lot of
Yeah, and I love that you touch on that point too in the beginning about the perinatal mental health is huge, uh, and I love the idea that you instilled in them about wonder with them, right? Wonder, they may think this is they're a good choice for them, but in reality, they might not know. They might be in a different place themselves to think otherwise. And so they do have a lot of support in regards to perinatal mental health, but it's something that continues to come up as far as needs and more information. And so, keeping this in mind, I'm also going to be mindful of finding, more topics around this specific situations for families. Yeah.
What happens, let's say, when they have a 3.5-month-old
Yeah.
in front of that TV for large chunks of time? To me, that would be a red flag that there's a problem with the dyad, the parent and the child,
Yeah.
and that if a mom's really struggling to get out of bed in the morning, that's very concerning. So, what happens if one of your providers or coaches are seeing that? Is there someone who can intervene?
Yeah, they have each team has clinical supervisors, and so they do seek support or guidance from them. And uh, we have a lot of clinical supervisors that go to the home, and they are the ones that either provide a
Okay, good.
visit, and if referrals need to be made, then that's what they do. But um, that they do have support in that sense of
I'm
having
glad to
guidance.
hear that
Yeah.
because I did some training for an early intervention group, and one of them had brought in a case about an 18-month-old who was red flagged for autism.
Hmm.
The more they talked, the
Yeah.
child was on the floor crying and kicking at his mother for most of the day. The kid was inconsolable. And I said, It's not describing autism. What's going on with the mother?" And she said, "Well, the mother just sits in the couch.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to leave the house. She doesn't really care if the baby's crying. She doesn't pick up the baby." She was only 20. She
Yeah.
was far from home. She lived with her husband and his mother. The mother was not interested in her, and the husband was gone long hours.
Yeah.
I said, the problem's not with the baby. His response is appropriate for how distressed his mother is. She has profound depression. Someone needs to get her help. But
Yeah.
there was no mechanism to do that. And so we talked about that. So that's why I asked, because
Yeah.
I was afraid for that mom and that baby.
Yeah. No, and it's a good thing you brought it up again. We are focused on the topic of screens and babies, but in reality, we also have to be mindful of what's going on with mom, what's going on with dad. Are they, how's their well-being, their mental health, and because that contributes a lot to the environment of the baby. Yeah, this is great. I wish we could do this for 5 more hours, but I know they also have to do home visits and we have to go on with but yeah,
I'm
this
happy to
is
come back whenever you want me.
oh,
I love this work and I love
I
working with
to
people.
be honest with you, I have a feeling they're gonna in their evaluation, they're gonna say this is not enough. We want more time. And I might reach back to you and say, maybe a part three would be appropriate.
Or on a topic that's come out of this would be
Yeah.
great. Whatever you'd like. It's been
Or
really lovely to work with you.
or even facilitating the conversation. You do such a wonderful job, and I think you have all the expertise and the knowledge, and I feel like that's what they need, right? They look at you as the expert and I want to encourage that, and I want to continue them. I don't want them to feel that, their experiences, we're not here to judge how they, do a home visit, but rather we want to learn from them too, and how could we better. Anyway, sorry, the rooms are closing, by the
I
way.
really appreciate it, and I regard them as experts in the families that
Yes.
they're seeing. So it's
Same.
not, this is a partnership. I mean, I tend to
Yes.
see that anyway, even if I'm the one facilitating this. This is a
Yes.
partnership.
Well, you are appreciated. Welcome back, everyone.
Hmm.
So not everybody's back yet.
The room is closing right now, so everyone should
Okay.
be back now. Everyone should be back, Dr. Newman.
Great. So how was that? I'd love you to share some of the ideas you had. I know we don't have a lot of time left. If you're not speaking, just mute because I'm hearing an echo. That's great. But I want to encourage you to talk. So unmute when you're ready. So what thoughts came up in your groups? We'd love to hear because you're the expert on your families and what you're doing. And I'd appreciate, I'm sure your peers would appreciate you sharing what you thought.
Sure. I could share.
Okay,
I
Adriana.
was grouped with Kelly. We had very interesting topics going back and forth. Um, I was sharing with her that I visit a client for their 3 to 4 month engagement or 2 months, I can't recall. And baby was doing tummy time, and he was doing tummy time facing like a little board. And I came to find out that it was a board of black and white cards of abstract lines and circles and dots that her guest did for her the day of her baby shower. So it was an activity that her guests did. She had Sharpies and cards, and they created an abstract card, sorry, for then her and her husband created a board, and baby was doing tummy time staring at that. So I thought it was a great idea. I told her, wow, that's very unique. I'm gonna bring it up and to my clients, and maybe they could do something very inexpensive, Dollar Tree 99-cent store, and create those abstract cards. So that was very neat. Kelly and I also touched bases like on how society is now. Everything is technology. If anything, we're expanding and we're not getting away from it. It's not going anywhere, you know? It's just a very sensitive subject when we bring it up to our clients. Because I'm guilty to tell a client self care, watch something on TV, watch a show, distress your mind. But then there's the client with the TV and her children. So it's kind of like contradicting. And I mean, it's hard for me to do it. I sometimes work from home. My kids are home from school. Easy way, it's like, hey, watch some TV while you finish up some paperwork. And we also spoke about people's living conditions. There's clients that live in little apartments. They don't have a backyard. Some of them are renting rooms. Their only entertainment is TV.
And those are all real life factors. And I'm thank you for bringing that up. But one way you might describe it to the parent if they're watching a program they love is adult brains are different than children brains. Their brains already developed. And yes, technology is here to stay, but just it's another tool. And I think maybe the conversations we're all starting to have as the providers is that how do we teach people how to use the tools rather than have the tools overwhelm them? Right now so in Finland, they have among the best school systems in the world. From very early on, they teach their children how to use technology rather than it to overwhelm their lives. They consider it a tool, and there are limits to when you use a tool, and you need to do other activities in their life. So they've put into place a way to think about technology, and a way to use it, and a way to limit it based on what they know about development and things like that. So the United States hasn't caught up. We're hoping they will catch up, but that's something we can think about with our families. How can we help them to learn how to use the tools? And that what's good for an adult isn't necessarily good for a young child or even an adolescent. So, and you're right, in terms of living, people can find ways even in a small space to have some other activities. If they're living in a room, maybe they can get, as someone pointed out, the paper bags, use crayons. It doesn't have to be fancy, but maybe there's a corner of the room where those supplies are, or they keep it in a bin or a cardboard box, and that's what they can do. Some way to find a space without turning the TV on that they can do something with that doesn't require a lot of money. And maybe encourage parks and things like that to go out for a walk, something like that. Because you're right, not everybody has access to a backyard or to have enough space to have screen-free zones in their where they live. But thank you, Adriana, for bringing all that up. That's a conversation that's going to continue because there's not an easy answer to it. Thank you. Someone else had their hand up. Was it Daniela or somebody else? Your hand went up and then.
Yeah, I need to change my name. I couldn't change it on the thing. This is Maria Garcia. So in our group, we're talking also. I was talking to Joanna. We definitely thought of like environment, right? On how is it easy to kind of like mention like, oh, well, take your kids to the backyard. Yeah, they don't have a backyard. Or kind of like coming up with a tailor, right? Kind of like a specific plan for a specific client. We cannot generalize and be like, oh, well, you can play with.
Exactly.
They don't have money to buy specific toys, right? Learning toys at times. So I think Joanna also kind of mentioned like kind of going with a kind of like a solution. Because if you're having a mom that is breastfeeding and has like a 1 or 2 year old, and the 2 year old is everywhere, right? And she needs to breastfeed for those 20, 30 minutes. It's easier to be like, oh, let's turn on the TV so we can go ahead and like I can breastfeed the baby and I can also see you here because who knows, right? They do so many things when they're not on your side, on the side. So we were just talking about kind of like coming with a solution. Like she had an amazing idea where she's like, oh, maybe we can create a box of like a silent toys box where you can have this box next to you while you're breastfeeding, and these are toys that are not loud, right? But I see you and I'm breastfeeding also without having all this chaos around us. So I think Joanna had very good ideas, and I feel like we definitely have to go in with at times with solutions and a tailored plan for specific clients.
I think that's exactly right. I encourage you. It has to be family by family, and sometimes even child by child within the family, depending on what's going on, because one size does not fit all in any of this. You really have to look at their particular circumstances and see how you can best support them in a context that's meaningful to them. And that's practical and doable, because what we don't want is to shame anybody. I'm mindful that we don't want to shame any family. We want to support them. We want to support them to be the best parent that they can be and the best person for themselves in this process. So it has to be family by family, and we have to be attuned to what's going to work for them and what's not going to work. So reasonable expectations is really important. Thank you for bringing that up. This is a great idea. Anybody else want to share?
I'll share. So I was grouped with Annie.
Who I see two. Okay, who wants? I don't know who was first. Dionysia and then Cynthia. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I was grouped with Annie, and we discussed, just maybe creating a bag that has some of those ideas that some of the other parents just threw out there of things that can be made around the home, and kind of teach and demonstrate and give an example of toys that could be made from things that are already in their home.
Great idea.
We talked about the fact that you can see it sometimes in the middle of the floor with a ton of toys, and it's always that one thing that is not a toy that most grabs their attention. And so, just kind of showing them things that are already in their home, because again, sometimes the resources and finances are limited, and just kind of sparking that creativity within them, because we can say, oh, you can make toys at home, but for someone who is not a creative, that could be overwhelming.
Right.
Like, well, what do you mean?
Right.
And then you have those moms that are arts and crafts moms that are, it's just nothing for them. But for some moms, it's like, well, what does that look like? And so maybe just a small bag that has the water bottle with the beans in it, or a paper plate with beads in it that can be shaken as a tambourine and things like that, to just kind of show them these things can be made at home.
That's a great idea. And for some families who don't, you never know if the mom had anything herself. Some people didn't grow up with toys or anybody paying attention to that. So it's hard for them to imagine. So I think supporting that is a really great idea, so long as the kids can't eat the beans. Thank you. Cynthia.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to share, like those homemade toys are very, of course, like affordable and anybody could, create their own. But when I was talking about with my partner in that in our group is Brenda, we had a very rich conversation about um, intentional play, because play is like play, but explaining to the parents, oh, when they play with the simple things, this is what they're learning, all that brain development, even like saying like a little word, like you mentioned earlier, oh, that is your red ball, you like your red ball. So babies started associating words to object, what they hear and what they see. And then once they start talking, um, I always tell this to parents, you'll be surprised how many objects or, like your child can label. It's because that's being introduced at a very young age. Association to words on objects and also feelings, like labeling feelings. I know you're sad, or, oh, look at you, you're very happy. Naming those feelings because they don't see it, they feel it. And that's sometimes when the frustration comes in, when the child is not able to express what they feel because they don't have a name for it. So teaching, like babies at a very young age, introducing them to those things, it's gonna help them, and it deviates the screen time because mom is now aware when providing those information. Mom is becoming aware the importance of intentional play, that their baby is learning for a very simple conversation, or like knowing their child, what toys that the child gravitates towards to, that is their interest, looking at their cues, knowing their babies. And if we provide them toys that they're interested in, then they're going to play with it more longer, and creating a high, like you mentioned earlier, creating a high and low activity, making it more like, I'm sorry,
No,
Star
no, that's
Wars.
okay. I think
Like
that
creating that high intensity and low intensity. Like if like tummy time is a very like tiring activity for their baby because it helps them strengthen their core muscle development, right? But show like looking at the baby's cues. If they're tired, like we can put them on their back, and then that's the start of like the low, kind of more calm activity. Play the like nice music, or just like kind of read books. And just knowing your child's temperament, interest, and whatnot is like gonna help like how the baby is learning and interacting, and no need for screen time for that. And when we do ASQs, right, at the 4 months, if the baby scored like really, really good, we don't only cheer for the baby, and we cheer for the mom too. I always say, like, your baby's not going to reach these milestones without you providing this age appropriate activity. So that makes them feel good. And it only, like it makes them like, of course, especially first time mom, proud, and they are wanting to do more of those intentional play. So
thank you. I agree. I mean, all of this is to encourage the mom to feel some sort of mastery and being able to be a good parent and feeling good about herself, which will encourage her to want to engage. And you're right. The more conversation she has with the baby from early on, no matter what it is already the start of building social emotional skills and speech and language. So this is all great, and social and motor skills as well. I'm mindful of the time. I'll just show you briefly some examples of what they call low stimulation programs, and then I'll let you all get on with your day. Um, just very briefly, you're probably all familiar with some of these anyway, but just in case, I'll make it bigger if I can. So, Bluey, Daniel's Tiger, Neighborhood, Little Bear, Puffin Rock, Sarah and Duck, Trash Truck, Mr. Rogers, if you can find him, Dragon Tales, Frog and Toad, Esme and Roy, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, and Lovely Little Farm. Those are just examples of what they consider low stimulation programs. So it doesn't impact children's attention spans. Anyway. It's been my privilege to work with you this morning. I so appreciate everybody's inputs, your wonderful ideas, and the great work you're doing. It's clear. Um, Again, I learned so much from working with groups like this, but your families are lucky to have you. And I hope I'll get a chance to see you again soon. But thank you so much for making this a great interactive workshop. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Newman. If everyone could help me give her a virtual heart round of applause for us. It was wonderful to have you again. Um, I will provide an evaluation link in the chat box. But before I do so, I do want to reiterate that I'll do my best to find resources available for you all in Spanish and English. Sorry, one second. Sorry. I'll find resources available in English and Spanish, and I will run them by Dr. Newman, and then we'll send them out to you via a post email. I also made a list about all the great activities you all shared with us via the chat box or out loud. I'll make sure to send that over to you all as well. In the evaluation, if you do want to see Dr. Newman back again, share that with us. We'll bring her back. I know that I learned a lot from her. So please complete that evaluation, give us your feedback. And again, Dr. Newman, thank you so much for being with us today, this morning. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thanks again.
Thank you all. Take good care of yourselves. Bye.